United Nations says the ongoing conflict has delayed safer tanker salvage operation for years. In a new escalatory move, the Houthis have threatened to attack global shipping routes. Suspected Al-Qaeda terrorist attack in Abyan kills 5 troops. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Rushan Fuad. The United Nations announced that more than half of the amount of oil on board the Safer tanker has been transferred to the replacement ship so far. David Grassley, the United Nations Humanitarian Coordinator in Yemen, stressed that more than half of the oil on board has been transferred to the replacement vessel in the past 7 days. The United Nations Humanitarian Coordinator for Yemen, David Grassley, said that he is satisfied with what has been achieved so far in the fight of saving the Safer tanker, despite the current state of the war.
It was an enormous effort to get to where we are today. Very pleased at where we are today. But it's not easy in the context of an ongoing war to get the parties in conflict to work together on even a common threat like the Safar presented. And I think it's a testament to all the parties' recognition of the seriousness of the problem that we've been able to make the progress that we've seen here today with their full cooperation. So I'm very pleased to see what has been done so far. We just need to finish the job now.
These statements came during an exclusive interview with Yemen Today TV. When asked about the long time that the Safer issue has taken to be resolved, Grassley thought that it's due to the conflict.
Well, I think in normal circumstances it would not have been left so long. The reality is that when the war started, this vessel had 1 million barrels of oil on board. There was no longer any vessels that could come in and take the oil off. And with ongoing fighting, and you have to remember, of course, for many years the front lines were at the edge of the city of Hodeidah itself. So it was right there in the middle of the conflict. So it was not an easy situation in which to organize a salvage operation. That's why it took so long.
Grassley added that the ownership of the oil remains controversial and that it's up to the warring parties to decide on it, stressing that the priority right now is removing the threat of Safer tanker.
Well, that's more an issue for the parties concerned. I think, as you know, the way the oil was extracted in the past and represented by the oil that's on board the Safar today, there were many different state-owned and private companies involved, each of which has a stake in the oil that's remaining on the FSO Safar. So there's some legal issues that would need to be resolved. That would need the cooperation of the parties, of course, for that to take place. And that's likely to take some time, which is why the focus was getting the oil off the Safar onto a new vessel to allow that to go forward without worrying that the vessel might sink tomorrow. So that allows for a more a clearer discussion on how to deal with that problem. That too is not a part of this project, but this project will enable that discussion to go forward.
Years and months of preparation for the salvage operation of the FSO Safar lie behind us. Many challenges, many hurdles. The pumps are on. The pipes have been laid between the FSO Safar and the Yemen, the replacement tanker. As we know, sadly, Yemen is still a country that finds itself in the midst of a conflict more than 8 years. But one threat that has been looming large over the people of Yemen, but also the Red Sea and all the countries in the region, is this 47-year-old rusting tanker. And as we speak, the operation is now underway. But let us also be clear, this is just another step in this highly complex operation that ultimately will lead to the emptying of the tanks, then the cleaning of the tanks, then the towing away and the sound and ecological and socially responsible scrapping of the FSO Safar. All of these are part of this Operation FSO Safar.
We may draw the attention of our viewers that the full interview with Mr. David Gressley will be broadcasted tomorrow at 11:30 p.m. Sana'a time. Houthis have announced that they are working on developing new arms that can attack the international shipping lanes. This came in a statement by Mahdi al-Mashat, the head of the so-called Houthi Supreme Council, before a gathering in Sana'a. This report has more details.
Houthi militia leaders announced new threats to attack Yemeni islands and territorial waters in the Red and Arabian Seas, claiming to have new missile capabilities and drones that would be tested. According to the Minister of Information, the Houthi statements were condemned by the Yemeni government, and they called on the international community to condemn these statements and stand firm in the face of the group that serves the Iranian agenda in the region. The head of the Houthi coup's ruling council, Mahdi al-Mashat, threatened during his presence in Al-Mahwid Governorate that his group would work in the coming days to develop its arsenal and carry out experiments targeting some Yemeni islands. The unofficially continuing UN truce provided the group with an opportunity to recruit, train, and graduate large numbers of specialized combat courses in the group's naval forces. In response, Yemeni information ministers said the threats made by the leaders of the terrorist Houthi militia affiliated with Iran to target shipping lines in the Red Sea, Bab el-Mandeb, and the Gulf of Aden, and to consider the Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean as a zone of military operations, and threatened to test new weapons in the Yemeni islands. The minister explained that the coincidence of these statements made by the Houthi leaders, including Mahdi al-Mashat and Mohammed al-Atfi, with the Iranian escalation against maritime security, reaffirms Tehran's regime's continued use of the Houthi militia as a tool to destabilize security and stability, export chaos and terrorism to Yemen and the region, and threaten border lines. He called on the international community, the United Nations, and the permanent members of the Security Council to declare a clear position on these statements and to carry out their legal responsibilities in confronting the terrorist activities practiced by the Tehran regime and Houthis. He also called on the international community to start labeling the Houthi militia as a terrorist organization, support the government to restore the state, end the coup, establish security and stability in all Yemeni lands, and stop the danger posed by the militia to navigation lines, regional and international peace and security. For his part, the head of the Yemeni Presidential Council, Rashad al-Alimi, during his meeting in Riyadh, with charge to affairs of the Embassy of China to Yemen, affirmed the Council's and government's commitment to a comprehensive and just peace. Al-Alimi praised Saudi Arabia's efforts to renew the truce and build on it to launch a comprehensive political process under the auspices of the United Nations that meets the aspirations of all Yemenis to restore state institutions, peace, stability, and development.
5 Yemeni soldiers were killed and 4 others were wounded in a terrorist attack launched by members of Al-Qaeda in Abyan Governorate, southern Yemen. The Fong report has more details.
A second attack on the security forces in Abyan in less than a week. A number of soldiers were killed during a new attack. So far, no group claimed responsibility for the ambush. The forces affiliated with the Southern Transitional Council have been waging a battle against Al-Qaeda for nearly a year, according to a military source and residents. The military spokesman for the Transitional Council forces said that the attack took place in Wadi Amran in Moudia district, east of Abyan. But security and military units thwarted an attack by terrorist elements who used machine guns and RPGs against the forces, and the militants ambushed tents where many soldiers were sleeping and fired at several armored cars. He added that the government forces fought a 2-hour battle with the terrorist elements, killing 5 soldiers and wounding 4 others, along with a number of attackers. According to some residents, the military vehicles were seen carrying victims of the attacking gunmen, whose number was not known. The spokesman explained that the attackers infiltrated from the adjacent Al Bayda Governorate, an area outside the scene of the security forces operation known as Siham al-Sharq. He added that Al-Qaeda is trying to disrupt the military progress by carrying out such surprise terrorist attacks and setting up traps using explosive devices against the security forces. Seeking political peace seems not possible among the conflict between the warring parties, which enhances more chaos in the country.
The joint forces targeted artillery positions of the Houthi militia south of Hodeidah. The sources confirmed that the forces were able to achieve direct hits and inflict human and material losses on the militia. The United Nations warned that food insecurity in Yemen has reached an alarming level. This comes amid severe funding crisis that the organization suffers currently. This report has more details.
Due to a severe budget crisis, the United Nations World Food Programme has announced that it would halt its life-saving malnutrition programs in Yemen this month. The World Food Programme has recently stated that a shortage of funding, along with ongoing supply problems, has forced it to stop malnutrition prevention programs in Yemen. 2.4 million malnourished Yemenis, who are already among the most vulnerable in the nation, would be severely impacted by this decision. To help Yemen manage the perilous situation, the UN agency said that it will direct the limited funds available to life-saving treatment programs for acute malnutrition cases. Only 30% of the required funding has been allocated to meet the WFP strategy for the coming 6 months, from August 2023 to January 2024. Millions of people across the world continue to be impacted by the UN's crippling funding crisis, which has seen donations fall by about 50%, while acute hunger reaches record levels. Yemen has been embroiled in a devastating civil war since 2014, with the Houthi rebels fighting against the internationally recognized government and its allies. The war disrupted Yemen's food supply chain and caused widespread famine, bringing the Arab world's poorest country to the brink of collapse. The country's 8-year-long war has decimated the economy, resulting in millions becoming food insecure. Hunger and malnutrition are among the most pressing challenges in Yemen today. More than 17.3 million Yemenis are food insecure, and 51% of young children and 24% of women are in need of treatment for acute malnutrition. While conflicts and the resulting economic crisis have been the key drivers of acute food insecurity in Yemen, several external shocks have worsened the food security situation, such as the impact of the war in Ukraine, affecting the already severe and lingering food insecurity impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Coming next. The Yemeni film The Burdened wins Best Screenplay Award at Durban Film Festival.
اسمي سنة وأنا رسامة من سنة. لما بدأت الحرب كان عمري 2 كنت أخاف أوقات بس الرسم يسعدني. حلمي أن أكون رسامة عالمية. أمنيتي صعود سلم النجاح وأحقق كل أحلامي. أنا سالم من حضرموت وأنا أحب التصوير. لما بدأت الحرب كان عمري 6 سنوات. أحب تصوير كل جميل في بلدي.
Welcome back. The International Organization for Migration said displacement cases in Yemen have increased. The organization stated that 48 families representing 288 individuals were displaced during the past week. It added that the number of displaced families since the beginning of this year until now has reached about 3,882 families. The terrorist Houthi militia arrested the head of the Teachers Club in Al-Mahawid Governorate. The arrest came following the strike conducted by teachers in the city to demand paying salaries, which have been suspended for more than 6 years. Informed sources in Sana'a said that the Houthis have assigned their fighters to supervisors in public and private schools. According to the sources, those Houthi supervisors imposed on schools their sectarian agenda and religious celebrations. The Fung report has more details.
With the start of the school year at unusual time in the areas under the control of the Houthi militia, the militia began their mission by imposing sectarian events on the students. A festive day was imposed on every school to hold the extreme ritual of Ashura Day and to distribute poetry for the children to read in the morning assembly. And instead of being preoccupied with the salaries of the teachers and their livelihoods or devising modern scientific programs to develop education, educational sources in Sana'a mocked the Houthi militia's preoccupation with the Shi'atization of schools. The Houthi militia not only imposed a sectarian agenda on the schools and their students, but also appointed supervisors affiliated with it in all the schools to follow up on the implementation of the Houthi sectarian plan. Then comes the question, who are these supervisors and do they have the necessary competence to supervise schools? After the recent truce and the cessation of war on most of the Houthi fronts, thousands of its fighters and volunteers became unemployed. Their salaries became a burden on the militia. The Houthis were only working to search for alternative opportunities to contain the returnees from its fronts, including distributing them as school supervisors, so that they would not return into a societal problem and financial obligations in the future. Houthi sources confirm that all the new supervisors were appointed without the lowest professional standards, under the pretext of monitoring the educational process. In pursuit of Houthi arrogance, private schools were forced to bear their monthly salaries and incentives without discussion.
The Burden movie, directed by the Yemeni filmmaker Amr Gamal, has won the Best Screenplay award at Durban Film Festival. More on the story is within this report.
The Yemeni film The Exhausted, directed by Amr Gamal, won the Best Screenplay award at the 44th Durban International Film Festival in South Africa. Among the 20 films submitted to the competition, The Exhausted is one of the last and most important films in which director Amr Gamal participated in several Arab and international capitals and won many awards, the latest of which was the Durban Festival in South Africa. Director Amr Gamal and many of his work have previously won many important awards, part of which are Amnesty International Prize and Audience Award. In addition, he received 2 awards for completing post-production stages in Sweden. Moreover, the film participated in many international festivals including Sydney, Taiwan, and Slovakia. Finally, the film participated in the official competition of the 44th Durban International Film Festival, which will be held in South Africa from 20 to 30 of July, to win a new award. The story of The Exhausted revolves around Isra and her husband Ahmed, who live in the old port city of Aden, in the southern part of the country. Since 2014, their existence are shaped by the consequences of the ongoing civil war, and with sincerity and great realism, Gamal reminded us about the conflict by showing military checks in the street and frequent power cuts affecting public buildings and private households, among other details. The family's economic status is already hinted at by the first scene set at market, during which we see Ahmed and Isra paying 2,300 Yemeni riyals for a kilo of potatoes, based on true events which took place around 2019 and enriched by the presence of understated acting performances. The Exhausted offers the international audience a good snapshot of what it's like living in Aden today and how religious conservatism can make people's lives unbearable.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. United Nations says the ongoing conflict has delayed Safer Tanker salvage operation for years. In a new escalatory move, the Houthis have threatened to attack global shipping routes. Suspected Al-Qaeda terrorist attack in Abyan kills 5 troops. This is the end of the news. It was Roshan Fouad. Thank you for watching.